the Green Home Institute, celebrating our 20th year in existence as a local nonprofit right in Grand Rapids. So sad that we couldn't be doing this in person, hopefully very soon. But, here we are, and I'm excited you could be joining us so we can get the word out. Throughout this session, we're going to be talking, we're going to have some interactive questions. And don't feel like you're bothering me if you have any questions or comments. Just drop them right in, and let's just have a dialogue. I don't want to just keep talking if something is on your mind. I'm also going to have a couple challenges for you all to look at a couple things and assess which one is the most energy efficient and tell me why. So be ready to answer that question. Even if you don't know it, it's okay. Just make an informed guess on what you think. And yeah, so hopefully you get out of this what you want to learn. I got a lot of stuff to cover, and we might not get to all of it, and that's okay. I just want to make sure you have a good understanding of some of these different things. And if there's things that I didn't, I don't know everything either. So if there's something I missed, feel free to chime in and share your ideas too on how to help people save energy, save money, and reduce our carbon emissions. So the first thing is to consider is we have something called the home energy efficiency pyramid. There's different pyramids out there and how they look and what their placement is. But really what we kind of have is the bottom of the pyramid and going up are things that just you can't change, or that are difficult to change, more expensive to change, harder to do it yourself, all the way at the top where those are things that are completely within your control. And the higher we go up that pyramid, the lower we are, the more that it uses energy, the more that it costs to fix it, the more that it may be unchangeable. So if you think about your existing home on the bottom there, obviously these things are very difficult to change. The age of your house, you can never change. The way it's oriented, very expensive to spin it around. Condition square foot, that can be changed. You can shrink or add. The local climate, that's where you live. You can't change that number of stories. Maybe you could add some more stories. Maybe you could lob one off. One of the most energy efficient things you could do is split your house into two. We have a housing shortage, a housing crisis. So one of the most energy efficient things you could do, and to help with the housing crisis, is to split your house into two and rent out the other side. It's an income stream. So I just starting there, like if that's all you do, just leave now, go split your house into two, create some more units in Grand Rapids, because nobody can find a house. So, just leave right now and do that. And you would make a huge impact. You'd cut your emissions in half. So I want you to all kind of, as we go through this, we're going to flip this thing on its head and start kind of in the easiest areas with your behavior, what you can do easily now, and then get into some of the more difficult areas where you want to hire help and get a contractor. But those are the ones that are going to save the most energy, make you the most comfortable, and improve the health of your home. So for the first thing you can do is, if you haven't done this yet, Consumers Energy Smart Meter Program lets you get a ton of data. And, depending on how data nerdy you want to get with the whole thing, you can drill down into this thing and learn a lot about your habits from an electric standpoint usage with your smart meter if you log into your portal. And so you can see, this is a snapshot of sort of a day here comparing to the last day of when energy is being used, how much is being used. You can switch between energy usage and cost. You can back out to a whole month, a whole year, a billing cycle, you name it. You can get all the information you'd ever need to help figure out when you're using energy, how you're using energy, and make a plan to reduce it. You can't really manage what you don't measure. One of the things that's key here, as I circled down there at the bottom, is that period between 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock. If you haven't gotten the letter yet or understood the letter, Consumers Energy is basically going to charge you more now for using energy between this 2 to 7 period. That is happening. Now, there are some opt-in programs where you can opt in and be a little more aggressive. So they'll basically charge you even more during that time, but even less during the off-peak times. And what makes that really important is that if we're trying to go more renewable energy, reduce our carbon emissions, this is the time when everybody's using energy between 2 and 7. And this is the time when they have to turn on their expensive, dirty fossil fuel peaker plants that cost a lot of money to you as the ratepayer, to all of us, and use a lot of carbon intense energy. So the more we can shift away from this 2 to 7 period, now we're going to get rewarded for it. And depending on if you sign up for one of their time of use or hourly rate programs, and you can find a way, and we're going to talk about some ways today to shift away from using energy during this sort of sweet spot period. But that's another thing to look at when you're looking at your utility bills and understanding your usage. Now it's not just your cost and your usage, but when are you using energy? And in the future, that's going to get even more intense, where we try to figure out how we can ensure everybody's using certain amounts of energy when, so we can be the most use the most renewables on the grid. And this is going to even change from that simple 2 to 7 to a much more thoughtful thing that will be automated mostly, but something to think about, and check that out if you haven't. Now, while you're in there, I want you to get your utility bills. I want you to get a full year's worth of your electric. I want you to log into your DTE or your gas account, get a full year's worth of your gas bill, and then head over to the Home Energy Yardstick on the EPA's website. It's free. And you're going to enter in your zip code, your home square footage, how many people live there, or that's number of bedrooms plus 1. And you're going to throw it all. So here's some more information: zip code, people living, conditioned square footage. If you don't know your conditioned square footage, you can check it out on Zillow or one of those online websites. You're going to put in, your what kind of energy you use, mostly electricity and natural gas for all of you. And then again, you're going to fill in on the left side. You can see your electric usage that you're going to get from your consumers portal, your gas usage that you're going to get from your DTE portal. And you need a full year's worth of data just to really understand. And then it's going to spit out a comparison here. And this is basically telling you that if you're below 5, you're really in rough shape, and you have a lot of work to do to improve your house. And this is based on a square footage standpoint. So energy use per square foot, energy use intensity, EUI. If you're above a 5, you're still in your good shape. But obviously, unless you want to be a 10 or a net zero house, which is even beyond a 10, you still can have some more work to do. But at least you'll know that, hey, you're not so bad. So it kind of gives you just a little rough estimate. And what I really like about it too is it helps you come up with all sorts of different ideas. Some of them we're going to cover here today in detail, on how to plan a project to improve the energy use in your house. Have you done some of these things? Have you thought through it? And you can save that on the internet, and you can kind of go through and check off things as you do them, and go through all of these energy efficiency things that are broken down by whether you're renovating or quick projects, or whether you're a renter, or certainly if you're a renter, there's less things you can control. But it's a pretty cool website to help you kind of compile an energy efficiency project together. Going one step above that, Consumers Energy is doing audits on the electrical side. Remember, so if they come to your house, they're not looking at your gas usage, which is a majority of your energy usage. They're looking at your electrical. That can be virtual if you're not comfortable having them in your house right now, understandable, or they're still willing to come in person, especially as things start to get better. The same goes for DTE. They have the ability to come in and do full assessments of your house, mostly on the gas side. There is some cost to that, but depending on your income situation, they have some free ones as well. Now, going even further than that, we provide a home energy score assessment for your house. And I'm going to paste a link to that there for you in the chat, so you can grab that. And this is a service that we offer, and we're going to come in and do a full assessment of what is happening in your home from an energy efficiency standpoint, and that looks at both gas and electric and other features that the utility companies aren't looking at. We're going to be using on the left there, like a blower door testing to depressurize your house, find where all the leaks are, thermal imaging to figure out where insulation voids are. And then you're going to get a really nice Department of Energy home energy score report. Think of it like a miles per gallon that for your car. Every home is going to have a miles per gallon rating eventually in the future. And so you're going to see here, where your home is at today on this rating scale, how much it's costing you, how much energy it's using, and then what you can do to improve and reduce energy usage. And within our report, it's going to have details on what those items are, how much they'll save, whether you should do it now or later when a system breaks down. So that's something we can provide, and we're doing all over the city right now to help people make these informed decisions. And to some degree, if you're income restricted, and we talked about that in the last session, we'll actually rebate the cost back for that if you follow through with the improvements. Again, you might say, well, there's that's expensive to do. So the Kent County weatherization department, and their contact information's here. We had them speak in our last session, so go check it out. If you are income qualified, they will potentially come into your house and do this inspection and assessment for you, and then also potentially give you up to $10,000 to make many of the remediations. So if you think you might be having, troubles paying for this and need help with funding it, or think you fit into that category, again, you can go to their website, give them a call, and they can come out and help you figure out what's going on in your house, and then come up with some funds to do it. And we're going to talk about all those things here today. So this is a kilowatt, and these are things you can buy online, or a lot of local libraries let you rent them out. Basically, you plug this thing into the wall in all the devices in your house and try to figure out what is pulling energy when it's off, because that's called vampire power. I knew somebody who saved $70 a month. Now, their electric bills were high, very high, but they went around doing this and then started unplugging things at night, shutting things down, turning things off that they thought were off. And they said their monthly bill went down by $70. Now, I can't guarantee that will happen unless you have a really, really ridiculously high bill to begin with. This isn't going to save much energy. But if you haven't done that yet, or you can just go around, and I'd recommend just unplugging every single thing, because pretty much everything draws power when it's off. It's wasting energy, wasting your money. So this is a simple thing you can go do, today, and get that done. Have kids go do it. So, and then of course you've heard this before, but what is that up there on the right side? What kind of lighting is the best to use? Anybody know? Right, light emitting diode, LED, most efficient bulbs. If you haven't switched to those yet, go ahead. They're even more efficient than the compact fluorescents, though not by much. But if you break them, they won't put toxic mercury into your house. So that's a bonus. And they break they're so easy to break. And so these have warranties. I had one, I know they cost a little bit more, but I had one go out on me. I sent it back in and they sent me a $10 check. So, and the price on them are going way down. Sometimes utilities hand them out for free. And you can get ones that do warm lighting. And warm lighting is important. You can see it's probably on my face right now, very orange, right? It's because that blue light can actually cause us migraines and headaches. So some of these bulbs are smart, and you can control the lighting, do a warmer light at night. That can help with sleep, make you sleep better, and help your overall mental health as well, because blue lighting can be very damaging to that. So those are all benefits of switching to LED, among saving a ton of energy and a ton of money if you haven't done that yet. So now everyone knows, switch to Energy Star appliances when you're replacing your appliance. Everybody knows that. If you don't know that, I'm just reminding you, switch to Energy Star. It's nearly impossible not to get Energy Star anymore. But more importantly than that, there's some other features of appliances. But one was one we just talked about. What's another feature of an appliance that you should be looking for to help you save money mostly? Does anybody know? And this is many different appliances. Just think of one other feature that you can think of. And if you can't, that's okay. Because it even stumped me just a few weeks ago and I had to remind myself of it. Yeah, there is something about the refrigerator. Yep, and I will get into that, but not in this. In this case, the refrigerator would not fit into that. So, and I'm not sure what you mean by sensory. or whether but if you want to elaborate. But so basically, I just talked about this, right? This is about shifting the time when you use energy. So a lot of our appliances now, you can tell it, you can get that washer ready, you can get the dryer ready, you can load up the dishwasher, but you set it to not run between 2 and 7 o'clock. Or if whoever's listening to this, wherever you are, whatever your time of use pattern is, right? So you can tell your appliances, you can get them all ready to go, leave the house, but you can tell it. And I just, did this last night with the dishwasher. It was like 6 o'clock and I was like, oh, I can't run this right now, and so I just set it to the 1 hour setting. Sure enough, thing kicked on at 7. It was actually the first time I used it, that setting, because I'm just now starting to experiment with my peak power usage. And it came on at 7, right? So we want to shift that load away. So again, that doesn't necessarily save any energy. It's going to use the same energy, but it's when we use energy, it's now becoming very important because it uses so much carbon and it costs ratepayers more money to use these higher intense systems. So that's one feature to look for when you're updating, not just the Energy Star. Now, when it comes to the fridge, this fridge is a terrible example, right? And I'm glad it's there. You don't want side-by-side fridges. You don't want ice makers. They just use a lot of power. Make sure that the freezer is on the top or the bottom. Whether it's Energy Star or not, that's going to save way more energy. So that's something to look out for. And get rid of the ice maker. That uses up a ton of power too, and then they just break down and leak. So it's no fun. And then, when it comes to washers, you're also saving water. Water bills are going up. We're going to talk a little bit about that. When it comes to dryers, look for condensing or even heat pump dryers and get away from gas as well. And what these do is a couple different things. First, they're super energy efficient, especially the heat pump ones. And they also eliminate that hole in the side of your house where they have to exhaust out. And there's a lot of bad things going on there. First of all, you got a pest entry situation, right? You got that hole that the dryer is venting out, pests come in. Number two, you've got an air loss situation, which we're going to talk about. But anytime you lose air in your house, you get less comfortable, you're wasting energy, you're wasting money. Third, if those things get clogged, they cause dryer fires. So you want to do a condensing dryer when you're updating, and then ideally switch to a heat pump one, which is going to save a lot of energy, and then one that you can set to that time factor as well. So those are things when you're switching to and thank you, Laura. So absolutely. So these washers sense how much water to use per load, and in fact you can set them to a cycle that spins it very fast. And the clothes are pretty much dry when they come out, so you barely have to use the dryer. And then the dryers sense clothes and turn off. The future ones now, they sense the moisture and then stop running. Or you can use a solar powered dryer, and you might think that's expensive. Well, it's not. It's the cost of a clothesline and some clips, and it's 100% free. Don't do it in the winter though. It's a bad idea to freeze, but in the summertime, you can use a $5 solar powered dryer. So. All right. Anybody, bottom picture, top picture, which one is the most energy efficient appliance and why? Or you could say right or left, whichever one. Bottom right, top left. Which one's the most energy efficient and why? It's all right if you just want to take a guess.
I think maybe the bottom one is what my intuition is telling me, but I can't really explain why I think that. Is anyone else in the same boat?
Right. Yeah, so we got a gas. We got 2 people voting for gas. Okay, great. So it's really the electric one on the top left there. Electric from an energy use standpoint. From a cost standpoint, now we're talking about something very different. But from a purely energy use and carbon standpoint, the electric stove is going to be way better. And if you go induction, which is now the future of cooking, and we have tons of famous chefs that are switching from gas. People love their gas stoves when they cook. Electric is awful to cook on. I get it. But an induction is the solution because it's both electric and has controls. You only heat the pan where you need it. You can control the temperature based on a setting, and you basically can do things even that I've been told. I don't do a lot of crazy cooking, but I've been told that you can't even do on gas stoves as far as control. Think of it this way, electric is 40% more efficient than gas. Induction is 70% more efficient than gas because it only heats where it needs to. And that's the direction we're starting to head to. If you want to try it out, and I challenge you, you can buy like a $60 single top plate online and put it down, try it out, test it out, tell me you don't love it. And the prices are going down. There's another thing here besides energy efficiency that is from a health standpoint that is important as well. Does anybody know what that is? Right. Yeah. So when you burn a gas stove, you're putting off CO2, which is normal. We breathe that out. But when our houses get filled with CO2, we get tired, we get cranky, we can't concentrate. But the other thing is that gas stoves put off PM 2.5. Now, if you ever see those air quality alerts pop up on your phone in the summer, that's PM 2.5. If you see people in California, right, when wildfires are hitting and they're giving out the air alerts and everyone has to evacuate, not because of the fire, but because of the surrounding air alert, that's when you burn a gas stove, that's you causing wildfire California air right in your house. And that's an asthma trigger, all sorts of nasty stuff, lung cancers, all sorts of bad things that you're breathing in. So, and even if your range is up there, even if it's venting, it can still be a problem. So the electric stove has 0 emissions. So it's from a health standpoint, you're not poisoning your house as well. And the other thing is when we test stoves in Grand Rapids, 50% of them are leaking gas or other things, and they're dangerous. Besides just their normal use, they have these other additional leaks that the electric stoves just can never have. So even if you don't do it to save energy, it's a huge health problem. And our recommendation is that all gas stoves need to be gone. And the future, I believe, will be coming where that will happen. It's just a matter of time. So check that out. If you get a PM 2.5 sensor, you can put it up and track, what's going on when you burn gas in your house, just to, check that. So, all right. So shifting gears a little bit, but still staying with some of the simple things we can do. On average, what uses the most water in a home out of these choices here? Clothes washer, landscape, toilet, shower, dishwasher, faucets, leaks, or the bathtub? We got a landscape, leaks, shower, landscape. All right, so on the left here, you can see kind of the order from the last report that came out. On average, toilets are our #1 water users in a home. Now, if you have a massive lawn full of Kentucky bluegrass, absolutely, that is going to win out. It's got to be big though, like maybe like 3 or 4 acres, and you're like watering that thing like crazy by hand. Sure, that's going to win. But setting that aside, like most homes in Grand Rapids, we're talking toilets. And if you think about it, you're just flushing that thing and that's it, right? I mean, there's nothing more to it. It doesn't matter. So Water bills are going through the roof all over cities. I know they are in Grand Rapids. They keep raising the rates. It doesn't save necessarily any energy, but we know the more water we pump back at the plant, that uses more energy for the city entirely. So there is a way to reduce emissions by pumping less water. So toilets, we can get them down. The average is 1.6 gallons per flush. You can get it down to 0.8, even lower, 0.5. I have a 0.5 dual flush 0.9. It works great. I had a 0.8 when I lived in a 2-story house in GR. It was on the 2nd story with old cast iron piping, and it worked fine, never had an issue at all. So you can check out like Niagara Conservation. They've got these low flowing toilets, and it saves water, saves money. You don't even think about it, right? It's just a simple thing you can do. The other thing, of course, is from an energy standpoint, shower heads, bathroom aerators, faucets not only use water, but they also use energy from your water heater. And so the more you flow out of them, the more you're paying for water, the more you're paying for that water heater usage. So switching to WaterSense certified items helps a lot. We want to see shower heads down to like 1.5 gallons per minute, aerators down to 0.5. Don't even notice the difference. And kitchen sinks down to 1.8 or 1.5. Flow rates. And a lot of these newer devices, especially the Niagara ones, you don't even notice the flow. And Grand Rapids has great water pressure. And I can tell you from testing over 500 more plus homes in Grand Rapids, there's great water pressure there. So your flow rates are gonna work just fine and you won't notice the difference. So that's a great way to save water, and a great way to save energy is to switch to these devices. So pipe wrap, easy, do it yourself. Go down in the basement, grab some cheap pipe wrap from the hardware store, order it online, and go in and just start wrapping all the hot water pipe. If you have an unconditioned basement, an unconditioned basement that you're not actively heating and cooling, you want to wrap the cold water pipe too, which can cause mold and moisture issues. It's not an energy saving thing, but it's just a durability thing for your house. But get in, wrap up all that pipe down there. There were some rebates from DTE for paying for that too, but it's pretty cheap. And that's something simple you can do to keep the water a little bit hotter, a little bit longer. As you switch to low flow, it's a very important thing to do. All right, here's another exercise for you all. Top left or bottom right, which is the energy efficiency feature and why? So we got one for the bottom painted seams. All right, so, and if everyone can see that, so the top left here, you can see these joints, they're exposed, right? And you can see here, they're sealed with mastic on the right there. So you're right. Go down into your basement. Take a look after this. What's going on with those joints? Are they sealed? Is there tape? Is there mastic? If not, you can go buy metal tape. The mastic kind of puts off VOCs. They can be a little nauseating. So I'd put your mask on then if you're going to do that. Great timing for that. It seals a lot better to use the mastic, but the metal tape works just fine and it doesn't put off VOCs and it's cheaper. And just get down in there and seal up all those. Now, a couple things will happen. If you use that space down there, a lot of that heat was getting wasted down there. But if you use it, people have told us, oh, now it's much colder in this space because I didn't heat it. So that's one thing to think about. But what it's basically doing is it's shifting the airflow away from where you don't want it in your cold utility room up to the rest of your house. It doesn't necessarily save any energy per se, but if you're colder upstairs and you're cranking the thermostat up a little bit more, then you do that a little bit less because that heat is getting up there. And you might live in a 2-story home, and you might be saying, my home is 5 degrees in the wrong direction every season. In the winter, it's 5 degrees colder. In the summer, it's 5 degrees warmer. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ducts poorly designed that are using the joist. You can see that joist cavity up here. Terrible design. So unless you have the money to rip it all out, which I know is expensive, and it doesn't save that much energy again, you're going to have those comfort issues no matter what. There is a product on the market called Aero Seal, and they'll come in and they'll blow a sealant into your system and seal it all up. And that should help with you being really cold in some of those rooms that are further away or upstairs. And it does reduce energy and improve your air quality and the flow of your system a little bit more. But that's expensive. This is an easy do-it-yourself to seal the ducts that you can. All right, left side or right side, which one is the most energy efficiency feature and why? Right side, man, it's from an iPhone. Yeah. So this was kind of a giveaway, the smart thermostat. Now, this is the most efficient reason for a couple things, for a couple of reasons, but not the reason you might have been told. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of misinformation going around that by setting your thermostat lower at certain times and higher at other saves energy and money. It doesn't. In fact, it can cost you more by doing that, because what happens is your heating and cooling system have to work harder to reheat those walls, right? It takes money and time to get your walls up to certain temperatures. So if you keep playing this sort of game where you move it 5 degrees this way, 5 degrees that way, then you got to pay more money to ramp those walls back up, and it's not comfortable. So we don't recommend it. We actually recommend sort of say it out loud, set it and forget it. Leave it alone. Maybe go off in one direction or the other, but don't go too far. Now, where it does make an impact is, again, back to that time of use one, right? It might be helpful to not have your heating, or especially your cooling system in the summer, run from 2 to 7. Now, it depends on your house and how well it's air sealed, and we're going to get into that. But you know, it could be a benefit to shift that energy use away from that 2 to 7 window by just letting your house kind of warm up during that time, right? Pre-cool it before, get it a little cool, and then warm up during that time, so you're not pulling from the grid when we don't want you to be pulling from the grid, and then cool back again at 7 o'clock. In the wintertime, we don't care about that just yet. So that's one benefit. The other one is, you know, you get data. Some of these things kick out data on when you're running energy, when you're using it, how much you're using, and data is helpful to help tell a story of how to save energy. So some of these things will give you a Wi-Fi or a download or an Excel report, but moving your thermostat up and down doesn't save energy, unfortunately, in most cases. So, all right, left side or right side, which one is the most energy efficient feature and why? And we're talking about the water heater in this case. We got a right side power vent. Also, good to see you out there, Paul. And I know you know a lot of answers. Yeah. Electric. Nope, there is no electric one in here, but I think you might be getting ahead. So yeah, the right side there, and ignore the left side for a second, but the right side there is sealed combustion. You can see the reason, because if you go down in your basement and you can see on the left side there, that metal pipe, right? If you can see if you can look through it and see between it, like see out the other side, what that's telling you, unlike this one that's sealed up here, what that's telling you is that the emissions are escaping potentially into your house, which could be at worst a carbon monoxide risk. And it could be low level carbon monoxide, which doesn't necessarily harm you, but it does make you, could make you have flu-like symptoms, which is something nobody wants right now. And it could make you, dizzy. It could make you, just very difficult to concentrate, but without sending you to the hospital. So that's wasting energy, putting emissions into your house. And so these sealed units use way less energy, and they're getting the emissions outside. The other bonus one down here is you can see the little catchment basin. That is, if it springs a leak, it'll move that water right out, and it won't, cause a flood or a mold issue in your basement. So that's another bonus. But even more important than this one on the left, this is the direction that we are headed with water heating. This is a heat pump water heater. And the way it works is you can see this vent right here. There's also another one on the top. Basically what this does is it sucks in air, heated air, and then it runs it through refrigerant like your air conditioning or your refrigerator, but in reverse. And then it kicks out colder air out the side out here. And it uses that to heat the water heater. We're actually doing a webinar on heat pump water heaters today at noon. So if anyone wants to check that out, it's free to attend if you go to greenhomeinstitute.org. We're going to be talking about these systems, ironically. Well, that wasn't planned, but this is the most efficient way, up to 400% efficiency with these devices, compared to gas or electric water heaters, which use a lot of energy. And this is definitely the way that we're headed. And the other cool thing about this, again, back to that, when we're using energy, you can tell this system to not heat water between 2 and 7 o'clock with your smartphone. That's what I do. And from there, it won't use that energy during that time you don't want to be using it. And so it'll preheat the water to make sure you have enough hot water to get you from that 2 to 7 o'clock period, and then start heating the water back up at 7 o'clock. So it has these smart features, built into it. And again, zero toxic emissions as well. Air conditioning, that's an easy one, right? Air conditioning, you want to try to look for SEER, ideally SEER 16 or higher. That's an energy rating, seasonal energy efficiency rating. And so that's a simple one. Air conditioning is really important because it's getting hotter and hotter, and more heat waves are coming, unfortunately. And so you want to, this is a health thing, right? You want to stay healthy by not getting overheated. The other important thing about whole home air conditioning is moisture removal. And so what happens with a lot of these systems is they get oversized, and we're going to talk about that. And so they fire up, shut down, and they don't dehumidify your house, which can be a mildew, mold, asthma trigger, allergy trigger. So you want to have a right-sized, high-efficiency air conditioning system for the whole house that can pull humidity out of the air and just run all the time. If it's running all the time, that's a good sign, because it's pulling that humidity out and it's working more efficiently as well. So that's something to think about too. And there are rebates available for these. And I wanted to say too that DTE has tons of rebates for water heaters, sometimes free if you're income restricted. They won't pay for the heat pump one though, but they will pay for the sealed combustion. So. And then moving on to the HVAC system, and this one's not a challenge question, more like I just want you to look at these two. On the left here is really what we want to see, that sealed combustion furnace. I ideally, 95, 96% efficient furnace that has the two PVC pipes right there in it, and that is exhausting again, so you don't have that carbon monoxide issue in your house. It's exhausting that air out. It's using heating as efficiently as possible. And again, there's funds from DTE to pay to some extent for these if you need to upgrade to them as well, to keep your house the most efficient during the winter. But I would argue the future that we're looking at is switching over our furnaces to all electric heat pump systems. And on the way there, we're doing dual fuel systems, where basically you run the gas furnace when it's really cold, below like 30 degrees in the winter, but then the heat pump kicks in on the shoulder seasons and heats the house during that time. I decided to go fully electric and go 100% heat pump. And basically the way that works is it's just like your air conditioner, right? So this is an air conditioning system that I have. It's going to, just like AC, it's going to, it's going to pull, it's going to kick out the warm air in the summer, but in the wintertime, it works in reverse. And if you don't believe there's heat in the air in the winter, you know that there is because you didn't die, right? If there was no heat, you would not live. So you know there's heat in the air. We can pull it out of the air and we can suck it into a house in a super energy efficient manner, no toxic combustion or emissions or anything like that. And so these systems are getting rated down to -13, -15. They still keep working when it's super cold out. And so I think that's the direction you want to go, but they can work in tandem with each other too, if you're concerned about, the cost, of electricity. And if you live in a propane area or know someone who does, Consumers Energy is actually to some extent discounting or giving away these things to people on propane with their systems. So what's really important is when you're talking to heating and cooling contractors is that you get, you make sure, first of all, ask them, are you doing a heat load calculation, right? If they say no, or they don't know what you're talking about, like, don't hire them. And then the next question is, are they doing a heat load calculation with a blower door test, right? And I showed you that picture, a blower door here on the left. We're depressurizing the house. We're figuring out how leaky it is. That helps the heating and cooling contractor properly size your HVAC system, because a lot of times these systems are actually getting oversized, which costs you more money. Then they turn off, shut down, turn off, or turn on, shut down, turn off, and it's not efficient for the system. It's very bad for air conditioning because then you're not getting that dehumidification that you need. So you want to make sure they do that. You can do your own report. I used CoolCalc to do mine. There's other ones out there if you want to do it, but just, make sure they give you some kind of report that's showing you what your heating and cooling load is, and they're matching it up with the system. And ideally they're, doing a form of an energy audit on your house to get that data from you. And they're not, in the old days, they would just kind of stick a thumb up and see how much the house covered of the thumb. So a lot of them aren't doing that anymore, but there are, there's a very gray area between how much data they're getting from your house before they do that. So we talked about heating and cooling before we talked about air sealing and insulation, only in that because it's easier to do, right? You can swap a furnace out. You can swap a water heater out. It's very easy to do. But this goes back again, when you're talking to your heating and cooling contractor, make a plan first that we're going to talk about. Air seal and insulate, because if you first put in a system and then air seal and insulate later, your system will be oversized. So that's why you want to have a plan. That's why you want to work with us to do an energy audit, because we'll put a plan together that says, here's an approach to take to make sure that you're properly sizing your heating and cooling system. But the reason I'm doing, even though air sealing and insulation is the most important thing to do first, the reason I have it last is because it's very expensive and very invasive to your house. And it's getting harder and harder to justify doing it. The utility rebates for it are even getting less and less. So I put it last only because while it is the most important thing to do, it's also the most difficult thing and less easy thing to do, because it just takes a lot of understanding and awareness of what's going on. But it is still very important, and there are some do-it-yourself things you can do, or you can hire a home performance contractor, which, if you want to know of any good ones, we can send you some recommendations. But the first thing to do is we got to eliminate all the air leakages in the house to the extent that we can. That blower door test is going to tell us how leaky, that one on the left there, how leaky your house is. And you can get a caulk gun out, make sure it's a low VOC caulk so you don't get dizzy, or no VOC, but go through and caulk up, baseboards, caulk up windows, caulk everything up and reduce that air leakage, which is going to improve your comfort too. And then, if you put your hand, and it's been cold, right? Go out at night and put your hand over your outlets. Do you feel air blowing in? Well, you can use those baby things that protect babies on the left, that will stop that air from at least blowing in the outlet, which is wasting energy and money. Or you can get even further and you can do a sealant behind the outlet, or put like a sealed, you can take the one that's in there, take it out and put a sealed box in there. Again, that's a huge air leakage spot for your house. So you want to seal those leaks up as best that you can to stop, stop energy waste. All right, going down in the basement, top left picture, bottom right picture, which one is the most energy efficient one and why? We got a left side. We don't know. Left side. All right. Yeah. So that's your rim band joists, right? And the rim band joists, most of us have them. And you want to make sure that those are both air sealed with like a caulk or a sealant, and then insulated. That's also a comfort issue because cold air comes in through those and makes you discomfort. And then in this case, the person also insulated the whole basement wall, which is a good idea too, though doesn't save as much energy. In this case, they used the most extreme expensive insulation, which is foam. It certainly has the highest insulation rating, but it costs the most. And there are concerns about foam off-gassing toxic chemicals into your house, reducing your air quality. And while they're off-gassing, they also lose their resistance to heat, which is sort of a double slap in the face, in my opinion, because you're making yourself sick and losing your R value. And these are made out of oil at the end of the day. They're made out of fossil fuel. So there are like we have a wonderful local company called Newell in West Michigan. They'll send you. They helped me out. They sent me some just insulated blankets, and you can caulk around the rim band joist and then cut it out and then fit it up, or you can pay them to cut it out and send you the measurements and fit it into your band joist, and then you can staple it on that wall down there and staple it all across the wall. At my old house, someone came down and they didn't notice, and then they touched the wall. They're like, the wall is squishy down here. What's going on? I thought this was a cement wall. And it just, it looks like a standard basement cement wall. But it's not. So anyway, it's, the cellulose is a little less effective at transferring heat than foam, but from an air quality standpoint and a cost standpoint, I think it's way better. So now your walls get a little bit tricky. This is a photo of somebody blowing in cellulose, or it could be fiberglass, or they even do foam insulation, going in and punching holes and then blowing in this stuff to insulate and air seal your walls. Some concerns though about this is that if you could trap moisture in the walls and cause moisture issues. So you have to be very careful when you do this, that you've taken care of any of the moisture problems or leak problems in your house. And we're going to talk a little bit about those later. But it could cause other unintended consequences from a health standpoint. But it does do a great job of insulating and air sealing the home. I know people who you can rent these machines from some of the hardware stores, and you can do it yourself too if you want. Some types of siding can be moved and then punch a hole in it and then seal it up with a cap and then, put that on. But that can be done. Otherwise, the best thing you can do is to take down the siding and then put in an inch of either foam or mineral wool all around the house. And then that will help keep that sort of dew point of water out, and it insulates the entire home. Here you have to worry about the studs. You can't see them in the walls there, but there are studs, right? Every 12 inches or so, or 16, there are studs, and you can't insulate those with this strategy. So they suck heat out. But here you're stopping that thermal bridging, they call it, with that exterior insulation. So if you're doing a siding job, this is a great time to ask your sider to also insulate underneath. And, again, very expensive to do. And it saves, depending on how much wall ratio you have, that will, in your energy audit, will tell you how much you're going to save there. But it certainly will reduce noise and increase your comfort. Absolutely. And then of course our attics, right? Just like our heads, if we don't put hats on in the winter, we get cold. Our attics, warm air is pouring out. So you can pop your head up into your attic, take a look. Um, and yeah, thank you, Paul. Make sure to get your building permits when you're doing some of these things as well. So always important. But yeah, when you're doing your attic, you can rent a machine, you can blow in fiberglass, you can blow in cellulose, you could have it spray foamed. You know, go up there and see what's going on. You might have vermiculite up there, so be careful. That is toxic. You don't want to shake that loose. That's why it's important to have a real energy auditor come in and check that out. But for attics, you know, lay down an air seal. That can be done with a non-toxic water-based sealant, or it can be done with foam or whatever, and then you can put a nice layer of cellulose or fiberglass or blow that on top of what you already have. But that's going to really help make an impact on your heating and cooling bills, and then reducing the size of your heating system. So, and then windows. So for windows, you know, rarely do we ever recommend doing anything with windows as far as brand new windows. And the reason for that is because brand new windows are super expensive, especially I think if you were to use wood ones now, and they rarely save any energy unless you have a gaping hole in your window, or you've got a moisture problem where it's rotting, or you've got a lead problem, which is a whole nother entire different matter. You know, if you've got lead problems, then that probably is a great place to get rid of the window for sure. And Paul Hahn here knows a lot about that, so he can chime in. And the Healthy Homes Coalition, we had them on last time, can talk all about the great work they're doing there. But, you know, outside of that, the best thing to do for windows is to repair them, re-putty them, caulk them, seal them, and then storm them. And that is going to reduce your air loss, and it's going to just, improve the performance of your window without spending, thousands and thousands of dollars. You know, if the window person comes knocking and says, you can save all this energy, all this money if you replace your window, that's what they all say. Rarely is that ever true, unfortunately, so it's just not the truth. It seems like an easy thing that you can see your windows, you can feel how cold they are, but they really just don't save that much energy. So unless you're doing it for aesthetics or health, I recommend the repair, reputty, and the low E Energy Star storm windows to put on. If you are doing new windows, this is a cool LEED project up in Saranac, and they to stop, if you anything about windows, birds hit them and die, and it's very sad. So this is they put in this really cool shape here that I think it's just kind of neat to look at, and the birds see it, and it reduces number of bird deaths as well. So that's just one thing I wanted to throw out there if you were getting new windows and wanted to think about that. Katie, are we on till 11 or 10:30?
We're slotted till 11. So.
All right, good. All right.
Forge ahead.
So, so the last but not least is solar power. I recently just added about 4 kW of solar to my house. And solar power obviously could, you might think, well, this is the easiest place to start, but it's absolutely, in most cases, the most expensive place to start. And so you want to do all those other items I talked about first, and then start looking into, of course, solar energy. And the first thing you can do for solar is you can go on to the PV Watts calculator by NREL, and I'm going to drop a link into that. And you can do your own solar assessment so that you're fully informed about how much solar you can use in your house, and have an idea, before you ever call a professional. This is a great tool by the National Renewable Energy Lab. So I took a look here at the Meyer May house, and let's imagine they wanted to add solar to that beautiful roof there, which I just don't think will ever legally happen. But anyway, just as an example, the Frank Lloyd Wright house, here's that south-facing pitch. And the cool thing about this tool is you can kind of go to your own house, or your business for that matter, and you can draw a line and say, well, what if I put solar here on the south side, or drew it over here? You can do different ones. And then basically it spits out a sort of simulation of what that solar was. These little information tabs here tell you more detail. So you can basically educate yourself on some basics of solar. Like, you need to change this here to say that it's mounted on the roof. And then it kind of makes some estimations based on your climate, right? Up here in Michigan, if you know the tilt of your roof, you can put that in there. If you know the direction of the solar panels, again, it estimates all that for you. Most solar systems are a loss of 14%, but you might know some information that they don't know. So you can change all these things, and it tells you how and why that, what that means after you draw your system on your house. And then it spits out a nice little report on, how much energy and money you should be able to produce throughout the seasons and then over the course of a year. And that gives you some information if you're, when you go to talk to a professional solar installer, get a couple of quotes from them. We know some great ones we can recommend. And you can say, hey, look, I have this data. What is your data? And that way, there are some, unfortunately, there are some fraudulent solar installers out there. So this will give you that information in case you come across one of them on, what's real. And, just gives you a sense of if you wanted to offset a certain amount of your energy use. The important thing to know is you're not allowed to generate more energy than you use. So Consumers Energy won't allow you to oversize your system. So this helps you get a sense for, how big your system can be when you're doing what I originally told you was to go back and look at your utility bills for the course of the year. You can match them up with how much power you might be able to produce. So here's my solar report for April. It's really cool. It kind of tells me how much solar I generated each day. You can see the really cloudy days where it dips down and the really sunny days. And, overall, produced about half of my home's energy use on solar. So I'm going to respond to this one in the chat just so it's not in the recording. So I'm not giving any favoritism out here, but here you go. So there's my response to that. But anyone who wants to get some recommendations on solar, I can give you that. So again, the home energy score, right? We can help you get one of these. This is what I used for my own house. Here is where my house was. It was a newer home that I bought, so it was already doing pretty well. Didn't need much air sealing or insulation done. And here's where it would be after I did my full-blown energy efficiency and solar project. Now, this is important because right now what we have is a very unique situation on our hands. What we have happening right now is we have skyrocketing home values, which in many ways is bad, and it is unfortunate, and I hope the situation is resolved. But because of these skyrocketing home values and low interest rates, this gives you the opportunity to find a lot of money to pay for the things I just talked about, all these things, right? Like you can do it. I just did it. Here's what I did. I increased my mortgage by $45 a month, right? I'm paying $45 more than I originally did before I did my big energy efficiency and solar project. But my energy model is showing me, and these are really accurate. We've done some tests on them, that on average going to save $53 a month on average, right? It'll be less in the winter, more in the summer, right? It'll kind of average out. But overall, what have I just done? I've shifted the debt from basically paying the utility company, because we're always in debt to them, right? We always have to pay a debt to them. I shifted some of that debt to my mortgage. So you can see here, this is sort of just a simple, this isn't my house, but this is just sort of a simple concept. It's total cost of living in your house is not just your mortgage payment. It's also your utility bills, right? And so let's say an average house costs, this much, certainly not anymore, but, and this is how much you pay in utilities. Well, if you were to do something like what I did, right, you might pay more on that mortgage, but you paid now $200 less, right? So you reduced your cost of ownership. Now you're paying the utility company less. You're paying more to your mortgage lender, which builds your credit, builds your equity, makes your house more valuable. By doing all of this, I increased the value of my house 3%, which is difficult to do in a market where the values are higher the next day, right? Just based on whatever is happening that we still don't understand. But, I was able to increase the value of my home by 3%, which right now isn't a problem. But in the future, when this all calms down, you'll want to be more competitive when you go to sell your house. So these energy efficiency things will do that. So that's something to consider for solar or anything you're doing. Call up your lender and talk to them about what you can do. I was very fortunate to work with United Bank, who was very helpful in doing this and worked with me, and they're local to Grand Rapids. And I have a whole article that Rise posted on how I did this and why I did this. So I just shared it in there for you guys if you want to check out the financing piece. Now, I did all this without even considering this part. But the thing is that there's a 26% tax credit for solar power, batteries, and all that. And it's basically eats away at your tax liability. So it's not just a check that they hand you, but if you have liability, it knocks that down. So it goes out across 10 years. And so this wasn't even factored into my financial planning by any means, because I just assumed I may not get it or it may not work for me. So this is just sort of a cherry on top. But if you need that, there are some lenders that are allowing you to use this to buy down the mortgage, but it is, it pays for a third of the cost of the system as well. And also the federal government just classified geothermal as a renewable energy resource. So I talked about that air source heat pump system I installed, right? I'm pulling energy out of the air. Well, geothermal actually pulls energy out of the ground in the same way. And it's way more efficient than air source heat pumps, and you can get this tax credit for it. The reason I didn't do it is because the tax credit actually was gone and now it's back, and because I would have had to have killed a lot of trees at my house to do it. So that was very sad, and I didn't want to do that. So so check out, get a hold of your accountant, your tax representative, but you can use this to help pay for these advanced systems, if you're interested in doing that. So I'm happy to, this is sort of the from the energy standpoint, that kind of wraps that up. But, our homes are a system, they're a living system, and anything we do to it can change one thing to harm our health or make us even healthier than we were before. And that's even more important than ever. And so up here, I'm going to talk a little bit about health and durability before we wrap up. So up here, again, another challenge, looking at these two different furnace filters. Which one is the healthier filter and why? Got one for the top. So the top one, as you can see, much thicker. Now you can, these smaller ones that you probably have for your furnace, these 4-inch filters, they can get very high ratings. These are called MERV ratings, right? MERV 8 is where you want to be from a health standpoint. MERV 13 starts catching airborne viruses, right? Very important. MERV 16 catches even more airborne viruses. The problem is if you try to shove a higher MERV rated filter into your older system, you could cause the fan to blow out and cause airflow to get restricted. So you got to make sure you work with your heating and cooling contractor to figure out what your ventilation is. But if you're upgrading to newer systems, make sure to get that thicker air filter. You change it out less, and it's going to stop pollen. It's going to stop PM 2.5, which picks up in the summertime from the warmer air, right? Again, it's that California wildfire smoke. It drifts over here too, but we have it even without that from the cars. So this will catch all those things in the and filter them, and it'll filter influenza and COVID as well, and catch it all. So these are very important for your home and for your business and for schools. Everyone needs to switch to these things right away. All right, so keeping on that health side, you're looking at a kitchen here. There's the kitchen on the top left, kitchen on the bottom right. And there may be more than one answer, but in this case, I'm just looking for one answer. What is, which one here has a health feature and why? For the healthiest feature. And yeah, forget the, we already talked about the stove one, but yeah, so yeah, forget the stove part. Ah, the sunlight. Yeah, thank you. Someone else got that on the last one, and I was like, I got to change this photo because that's not the one I'm talking about. But it's great. Yeah, having natural sunlight in your house warms it up, keeps the light off, is healthy for you and your mental health. So good catch on that. But that's not what we were talking about here. We're talking about this range hood. So again, back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Do you have a range? Number one, is it working? We'll find that out during the energy audit. We put up a little device and see how much it's working. And is it recirculating? If it's blowing air back out at you, that is no good. It's just putting that bad air into your face. You want that venting out of the house. And even electric stoves, I'll admit, if you burn water on them, the PM 2.5 will spike and it will stay in the house for a while. And I know that because I've been doing air quality analysis on my own house for the last year. And I can report to you that when the oven has food burning in it or the stove burns like some noodle water that spilled over, it gets nasty and it does not leave the house without having that range hood venting out. So it's very important from a health standpoint. This is a, well, it's not working here, but this is called the toilet paper test. It's the cheapest thing you can do. Turn your bath fan on and go and grab a piece of toilet paper and just put it up to the toilet, to the bath fan. And if it holds the paper, then that means you've got some good airflow going on. Now we don't know what it is. So during our energy audits that you might have us out for, we will actually know, we will test the CFM rate. We want to see a 50 or higher. But in the meantime, this is the cheap way you can do it. If it's not holding it, then you might have a problem. The other thing it's not telling us is this venting into your attic? Because if it is, that is a health and moisture problem issue as well. But you want to have bath fans at work. The other thing is if you've got bath fans, this is your whole house ventilation system. Go and just turn it on and leave it on, right? Because you want to have airflow moving in your house constantly. And this is the cheapest way to do it until you can find a better solution. And that's important again during this time where we want to get viral airborne stuff out of the air immediately. It's important for all of our buildings to get air moving. So go in and just flip these things on and leave them on. That's what I did until we upgraded to a full ventilation system. And it made a huge difference. And I'll show you that in a second. But it's another thing to consider. All right, and last part on air quality, left side or right side, which is the best air quality and why? Any guesses? Just right. Yeah. So left side radon, right? Well, let me show you. So this is a radon system here, right? Very important. You know, Grand Rapids is in a radon zone 2, so the EPA rates them 1, 2, 3 with, I get it mixed up, maybe 1 being the worst, 3 being the best. But those ratings are sort of meaningless because I'll be honest with you, we test a lot of homes and a lot of them have radon problems. I was just talking to a home inspector yesterday who was doing a ton of tests kind of in Wyoming area and then in the Creston neighborhood near the river. And he was telling me getting super, super high radon readings. What is radon? Well, it's the #1 cause of lung cancer after smoking. And with smoking, it's even worse. Very big problem. We're all working from our homes. That's probably not going to change. We all love working from our homes now. And so, and we're down in our basements or whatever, that's where radon is the worst. So you want to take care of that. And I'll type a recommendation here in the chat, but I worked with them and they did a fantastic job, super cheap, but there's other folks out there as well. And, get your house tested. You can go to the county health department, get it tested, and you can make sure it works. I've got a device in my house that monitors many things, radon among one of them, and I've been monitoring it since July. And you can see here as the winter started dragging, and I'm on a radon zone in a zone 1, so like or 3, the least worst one. You can see here before I installed my system, as winter came and pressure increased, outdoor pressure increased, radon started spiking to the danger zone. And this is upstairs. So in my basement, even worse, where there's bedrooms down there. Here's where we put the radon system in, plummeted right down. And one thing that had happened was the power went out at our house, and the radon spiked up because the system cut out and didn't turn back on. And I would have never known that. Even with the system installed, I would have never known it had I wasn't using this device to monitor my air quality. So it's very important to monitor radon, to check it, to keep checking it in some way. And other air quality measurements, like I said, particulate matter, fine particulate matter. We can measure our stoves. We recommend measuring VOCs, carbon dioxide, humidity, temperature. These all give us indicators on how healthy our home is and what we need to do to improve it. And this goes hand in hand with energy efficiency improvement. So again, having that awareness, that education, that information, what's going on in your house from an energy and a health standpoint, and what are the best ways to improve it. All right, so left side or right side, which one is the most durable, right? Durability, keeping your house long lasting, and has health ramifications as well. What features do you see here, and which one has it, the left or the right? And I know this one's a little bit of a hard one to see it. You got to look really close. But, and I know a lot of people didn't get it, but you can see here what are they called? All of a sudden just escaped me. But the gutters, right? Gutters, right? Michigan basements are notorious for water and mildew and mold buildup. And one of the big problems is simply just because water is pouring down the house and just pooling at the basement, causing all sorts of problems. So getting gutters, getting ones that have leaf protectors on them so they don't get clogged up. We see a lot of homes around GR that just don't have them, and then they have all these moisture and mold issues in the basement, and they're like, why do I have this? Well, water's just pooling in. There's also, trying to get water away from the house using French drains and some other strategies. If you live on a hill or at the bottom of a hill, you've got to get that water moving away from the foundation of the house before you do anything, really. I mean, you can have an energy efficient home, but what good is it if you've got mildew issues? You can have good ventilation in the house, but if you're having moisture issues, you're still going to have problems, and it's going to cause asthma and allergies and other potential triggers. This is an easy one. Go to floodfactor.com, punch in your address, and it will tell you what flood risk your house has. And if you have a flood risk, then you might want to look at moving or insurance or some other strategies to mitigate that, putting in a sump pump, you name it. But this is a great place to get that data and just make sure that hey, there is a potential risk, because floods are no longer obeying their federal guidelines. I hate to tell you all, they are. Unfortunately, the 100-year floodplain, the 500, the 1,000-year floodplain, those are becoming shorter lived now. And we saw some major flooding. I remember the shower with a buddy movement. I still laugh about that one, in Grand Rapids. And so, we had that problem, and it's sure to come again. So look for that. All right, left side or right side, which one is the most durable thing you can do to protect your house, and why? Hmm. And this is if you were to look behind your washer. I'll give you that hint at least. If you're looking behind your washer, clothes washer. Any guesses? So the picture on the right here is rubber hoses. They leak, they break, they fall apart. So stainless steel braided hoses, get them swapped out right away. When you're getting a new washer, make sure you get the stainless steel braided hose, because they have a like 95% less chance of ever leaking or springing a leak. And so again, leaking water onto the floor, it starts pooling, you don't know about it, you left while your washer's going, all of a sudden you got all this floor to tear out, you've got mold issues, it's not good. So a real simple, cheap way to prevent a disaster. All right, last one here. You're looking in the living room. You got the top one and the bottom one. Which one is the both healthier and from a more sustainable material space strategy for a house? We got one for the up, top. Absolutely. So getting rid of carpeting, using hardwood flooring or concrete, you name it. Carpeting holds all sorts of dust and allergens, and if you have pets, it's even worse. It puts off VOCs that can be toxic. And so having those harder surfaces, you could do vinyl. Vinyl itself also can put off toxic VOCs and be an asthma trigger. There are more sustainable materials out there if you use Green Guard certified, Floor Score certified, but this is another way to be healthier. So we talked about one financial strategy, the one that I think is the best one to use right now, is if you're not in a low income situation, and we have that on a whole nother session that Katie posted a link to. But if you want to use the traditional mortgage route, that, again, with home values being so high and interest rates being so low, it's easier to borrow money to do this stuff now. Banks want to invest in your home, but there are other strategies. Of course, there's the rebates to help pay for it. I've used funding from Michigan Saves before. It's great. It's an unsecured loan, up to 15 years for all energy efficiency work. And they have done, millions and millions of dollars. In fact, they get national recognition for being one of the country's top green banks. So check them out if you don't want to use the traditional mortgage rate to fund it, or you can't pay cash like most of us can't. If you become a member at Green Home Institute, you also become a member at the Clean Energy Credit Union. They're not as competitive as Michigan Saves, but they do have some really good solar and electric car financing or electric bike financing. So we can help you get plugged into them if you become a member of one of ours. I use the construction loan process for my house, and it worked really well. United Bank has taken on the Freddie Mac Green Choice Mortgage, which is very helpful to do these kinds of things. And you can talk to them about that and read more about it in an article I posted. Again, you've got the 26% tax credit for solar and geo. You get $500 from the federal government for doing energy efficiency. You've got if you're on propane or know anyone is, there's a cold weather climate program. And if you're looking to build a new home, consumers just gave me the documents yesterday, $10,000 to do super energy efficient and all electric systems. I know building a new home right now is very difficult with the cost of wood, but that is available. So that's all I have. greenhomeinstitute.org. Like I said, we're here in Grand Rapids. We know tons of folks who are doing this kind of work. I'm putting out more resources on our YouTube channel as far as what I did at my house and what others are doing in their homes to do energy efficiency improvements. But we're here as a resource. Any thoughts or questions you might have, that's our website, and I'm going to post my contact in the chat too. But thank you all for tuning in and engaging. And I've got maybe a couple more minutes here to take any other questions you have. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Brett. So I bet there's people typing their questions right now. Maybe I'll talk for a minute here and and give you the thanks while we wait for those questions to come through. But I just gotta say that I learned so much from this course. I'm really, really excited about it. And we're offering it again later tonight. So for everyone on the call right now, if you enjoy this course, please let your friends and family know. I mean, between us, it's not exclusive to GRPS. So seriously, just spread the word as far as you can. This is a lot of great content that a ton of people in our community can benefit from. So again, thank you so much to Brett. We're going to give it some time for some of those questions to come through. Otherwise, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask out loud, looks like we've got something from Paul. So I'm going to hand it over to Brett here.
Yeah, good question, Paul. So we are, we're charging $300 for what we call our green home inspection. So that's a full-blown inspection, a home energy score, all the energy efficiency, testing the ventilation systems, water leak testing, gas. There's lots of gas leaks, checking for carbon monoxide detectors, looking for solar. And yeah, we absolutely have a full report on what that looks like to do that. So that's $300. And we, and if somebody's income qualified, so 100% area median income or lower. And again, if you want to learn all about that, for the 50th time, go check out our last session we did there. But we will rebate the cost of that back if you follow our recommendations and achieve a Green Star certification on your house. We pay that back. And again, hopefully that's done through some of these wonderful financial resources that DTE, consumers, Kent County Action Agency, the city, a lot of them have all these great resources to help to pay for these things. So as far as renting goes, it's a great question. We obviously there's a couple of things to think about. Is the landlord on board? Number one, I know sometimes landlords, if you inform them of whatever, something that they don't want to know about or give them information, they, a lot of renters are like, don't tell my landlord anything because they'll throw me out for giving them this bad information about the house. So there is always that fear. If you're not concerned about that, then of course, there's only so much you can do in a rental situation because you don't want to invest in your landlord's property, right? You don't want to pay for things for them because that doesn't benefit you. There are, things like changing light bulbs that probably still benefit you immediately, or maybe some of the water aerators, but insulating your air sealing or changing out the heating and cooling system, that's expensive. So you got to get the landlord on board and you got to get them to see the benefit of this. A lot of times, it improves their property value. So when you finally move out as a renter, they can, be more competitive in renting it out. And if the landlord pays your utility bills, then there's a benefit for them because it's going to reduce, the cost to them. So it really just depends on the situation and, how receptive the landlord is to doing this kind of thing. We work with a lot of landlords who are great to work with. But, they're the ones, who we would need permission from to, as far as, doing an energy audit as well. So.
Fantastic. Does anyone else have any? Oh, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah. So if moisture or foundation problems may be an issue, does this get looked at through some of this assessment? Yeah, absolutely. So we do moisture meter readings. The Weatherization Action Agency, and I'll post a link to their website. They look for moisture problems definitely look for moisture problems, because in most cases they won't fund your project if there are big moisture issues. So yeah, we look for foundation damage, cracks, do moisture readings, look for things that could be future moisture problems or be hints at moisture problems. But absolutely, I mean, the last thing, again, you want to do is pay for energy efficiency or health improvements only to have a water problem, which is way worse for the home's longevity and, mildew and mold issues. So yeah. Can you repeat the stove you recommend? So yeah, not a specific brand, but induction cooking. And again, if you want to try it out, you can pay like $60 on Amazon or whatever to, have them send you one, and you can test out a little top plate and see what you like before you invest in the whole stove. But yeah, induction is I think the way to go. And libraries now more are, or local supply houses or whatever, appliance stores are sometimes letting you rent these. I know in California they do that a lot. I hope to see that happen here more, but yeah. So for the air quality thing, there's a lot of great ones out there. I hear good things about AirAware. I'm personally using AirThings, and they just released a new AirThings device that I don't have that also detects the cooking pollution, the PM 2.5. I've got a different device for that, but it's fantastic little device that you want to set up, like, in your living space, in your breathing zone, and it gives you a lot of data. Is that's AirThings or AirAware. Those are the sort of two top ones that I've heard a lot about. So I see it is 11 o'clock. I can keep answering unless we have to go too. So, oh, you're on mute, Katie.
Oh, I do actually have another meeting that I'm supposed to be hosting right now. So my Zoom account needs to be elsewhere.
Oh, okay.
This is a recorded session. We're going to post this online, and then, show up to our later class if you'd like. Please spread the word. Thank you so much to everyone who came, and thank you to Brett. This was an awesome session. I hope everyone has a great day.